morning, good afternoon. For me, it's a good evening. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm very excited to be here to present to you Checkpoint IoT solution. What we're going to do is we're going to go through Checkpoint's IoT offering, and then I will talk a little bit about how to address the market, what's in it for the channel in terms of the opportunity, and we'll open it for Q&A at the end. So I will go ahead and share my screen. All right. So IoT stands for Internet of Things. Internet of Things is basically everything that that's connected to the internet, but doesn't really have a regular operating system, or it's not a computer or a user or something that you could actually identify with a regular means of identification. So IoT is actually all around us. When we talk about IoT, where do we find IoT? If you look around you, if you look up on the street, you'll see IP cameras. You walk into a building, there'll most likely today be smart elevators and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. In the industrial space, you would find industrial controllers that are connected to the internet. If you walk into a hospital, you'll see a plethora of medical devices that are connected to beds and other devices like infusion pumps and MRI machines and CT devices. These are all part of Internet of Things. These are devices that are connected to the internet in one way or another. They're connected to the enterprise network, and they're not necessarily actually identifiable on a regular basis, and they pose a very big threat for enterprise networks. A little bit about the risk that we have today. 67% of enterprises had IoT security incidents. 82% of medical companies or hospitals had IoT security incidents reported. And since the start of COVID, we've seen a rise of 2,000% in targeted security incidents related to OT and ICS. So it's pretty evident that IoT is a real threat. There have been a number of targeted attacks around IoT, like the Mariah attack or the WannaCry in the healthcare, that have really heightened the level of awareness in regards to protecting enterprise networks from IoT-related attacks and vulnerabilities. So we have three major sectors that are affected by this risk. Health, first and foremost, healthcare. Because healthcare, we're talking about basically life and death situations. If a hospital gets compromised or medical devices get compromised in a hospital environment, this not only can have a financial impact, but obviously it could create life or death situations. So healthcare is definitely something that is a segment that is very, very much aware of this and is looking for solutions. In the enterprise space, a lot of companies now in the enterprise space are using smart devices like smart building management systems, smart printers, IP phones. These are all devices that are hackable and that are posing a risk for the network. In the industrial space, you have anything between from a nuclear reactor to a water plant, to anything that is operational or critical infrastructure, utilities. These are mostly legacy devices that are very, very old, and some of them haven't been patched or anything like that for years and years, and they have vulnerabilities that people are not even aware of. So why are IoT devices easy to hack into? They're physically accessible. If you walk into a hospital, it's very easy to access a bedside monitor and plug in. It has a USB port. You can plug in a phone and hack into the network fairly easily. These devices usually run on legacy OSs, very old operating systems that were not built for security and have not been patched or updated for years. Therefore, they're difficult to patch because we don't know where they are. And some of them come with default password, like IP cameras, for instance, that can come from the manufacturer, and they're with default passwords, and the third party that is installing these cameras, not necessarily, security is not necessarily in their prime concern, and they might not even bother to change the password or define a strong password. And that, of course, is a very, very big vulnerability. So this gives you like a snapshot of why IoT devices are so dangerous and so vulnerable. So this is where we come in as Checkpoint with a complete solution that addresses these concerns in the various segments that we talked about. So we have three pillars that we, or three processes we have to follow when we want to secure an IoT network or a network from IoT risks. First of all, you have to identify and discover what you have. Then you have to deploy a security policy which is based on zero trust segmentation and deploy threat prevention. It's not only good to know what you have and what the risk is, but actually act on it. We always talk about take the prevention route. Don't talk about detection, but also talk about prevention. So let's go walk down this path and talk about what we have in terms of discovery and risk analysis. So first of all, you can't protect what you can't see. So first of all, you have to obviously scan the network, listen to the network traffic, and identify what you have on the network and collect all that information. Based on the information that you collect, you know what your risk posture is, you know what your risk level is, and then you can go ahead and deploy a security policy which mitigates those risks. So we would want to identify the IP cameras, the thermostats, the elevators, the printers, what have you. And some of these, let's say in a hospital, you would find not just healthcare devices or medical devices. You would also find printers, TVs. You would find other enterprise devices that are categorized as enterprise IoT. So you see a lot of overlapping between the different segments. When you talk about a healthcare, of course, it's also an enterprise. When you talk about a factory, it's also an enterprise. So that's important to know that when you talk about the different segments, there's overlapping in the devices that you would find in each and every network. So here's an example of a scan that you do in a hospital, and you come up with a result that you have an MRI device that has a high risk score. Why does it have a high risk score? Because the password strength, for instance, is weak, and there's a couple of known vulnerabilities that can be used to exploit this specific MRI. So what we do is we listen to the traffic, we identify the manufacturer, we identify the firmware version, we identify everything that is needed to know what the security posture of this specific device is. We roll all that information up into a single console, and we're able to see each and every single device and give a risk score to every single device and give actionable information. So how do we do that? We do not do that with Checkpoint technology necessarily. We do that with third-party technologies that we sell on our Checkpoint price book. You can see the top 4 companies on that sphere: Clarity, Armis, Mitigate, and Order, are companies that have developed identification and classification technologies that are able to identify and classify all of the IoT devices on the network based on technology that they have developed. The reason why that we have 4 different companies that we work with is that each company specializes in a specific market segment. So for Clarity is the #1 company today in OT/ICS, that is the operational technology and the industrial control systems, which are factories, utilities. That segment we cover with Clarity. Armis, we cover the enterprise space. That means, large enterprises can be high-tech companies, could be financial services, everything that is not health related or medical. And then we have the medical segment, which we cover with Order and Mitigate. These are 2 companies that specialize in identification of IoT, Internet of Medical Things, and we're able to scan the networks and get all the information on all the medical devices, hundreds of thousands of different devices. The bottom half of this sphere that you see here are other companies that are able to tie into our API, our firewall API, and feed their information, their scanning engines, into our firewall, and we are able to enforce a policy based on the information that they feed us. But we do not sell their products on our prices. They're technology partners versus strategic partners, which are partners that we actually sell their products on our price list. Another part of the solution is a firmware risk assessment tool that we have. It's an online tool, and we actually sell this service for. This is for manufacturers that are selling IoT devices. It could be cameras. It could be smart building technologies. We're able to give them a solution which enables them to, after they develop the firmware of their devices, to run a scan and see what vulnerabilities they might have before they release it to market. So we're able to give them the vulnerabilities. They can go back and fix whatever needs to be fixed, run the scan again as many times as they need, and then come out to the market with a firmware that has actually been tested on from a security perspective. So we've talked about the discovery part. Now we're going to talk about the zero trust segmentation. Well, once we have all that information, we need to action. We need to take action in order to protect our network, in order to be able to minimize the threat level that these devices pose to our network. So we would like to, ideally we would want to do is prevent, first of all, unauthorized access and malicious internet from reaching IoT devices. So we do that through our firewalls that are protecting our gateways to the internet. We would be able to actually define a set of rules that identifies these IoT devices and make sure that they actually only communicate with what they are supposed to be communicating with. So if we take an IP camera, for example, we would only let it communicate with the update server of that specific IP camera manufacturer. We would not let it go anywhere else on the internet, so nobody could hack into it and nobody could actually compromise our network or launch an attack through an IP camera. And another part of the segmentation is actually segmenting the network internally, what's called microsegmentation, preventing lateral movement within the network from IoT devices to different parts of our network. And here's an example of how we do it. This is what we call the IoT Protect Manager. This is what used to be called the IoT Controller. This is a part of our firewall management system in R8040. We have an IoT layer, like you see here. This is an IoT layer in the firewall management system, and all the information that we've gathered from the network gets rolled into this management system, and we can define a policy for each and every. We can do as granular as we want, or we can do based on device characteristics. So we could say for an IP camera, we have a specific set of rules, and for an MRI device, we have a different set of rules. And then we roll that, we enforce that in a click of a mouse, and we're protected, and we have a very high level of protection from our network. And we know to identify all the different various protocols that are proprietary for these specific industries. So for the healthcare industry, DICOM is a very prevalent protocol. For IP cameras, ONVIF is very common. And for the operation technology, the industrial side, Modbus protocol is very, very prevalent in these spaces. We know how to identify and to depacket, inspect these protocols and know how to prevent them from this traffic from going where it's not supposed to go. We also have the capability of doing an automated IoT policy, which takes the information from all the information that we've gathered, takes our crowdsourcing from our threat cloud, and takes the IoT traffic baselining, and all of those ingredients go into this IoT policy builder machine, which is an AI machine technology. And that, from the other side, comes out an automated IoT policy, which actually means that the security manager does not have to do anything. We do everything on his behalf. We do an automated policy. He can review it and choose to accept it or tweak it, but we give him the baseline policy in order for him to deploy that on his network. So this is really cool stuff. So we've done the segmentation, and then the threat prevention is the last piece of the solution. And that when we talk about threat prevention, that ties into of course our virtual patching story. So if we have a vulnerability that's just come out to the wild, we identify it in the cloud, in the threat prevention, threat cloud technologies. We push that into our firewall, that information, and then we can act on that, and we could virtually patch by blocking traffic or by making sure that these devices are protected through the network rather than patching the actual device. we take the necessary action on the network, and we're able to block zero-day attacks using using our virtual patching technology. This is an example of a real life what we can do. That we've identified a vulnerability that relates to a Rockwell controller. We identify that, and then what we do is basically identify and classify that vulnerability. We push the policy to the We push that to the firewall. The firewall knows how to handle that from a policy perspective, and we have protection 0-day. The last component of the IoT, our IoT story, is the nano agent, the nano agent technology that we put on device to protect in real time from injection attacks and real-time prevention on devices. This product is actually aimed at manufacturers. This is not something that we would sell into an enterprise customer. We would go to a camera manufacturer and offer this to be pre-installed on their devices prior to them putting them out to the market. They've got a very small footprint on the device, and it actually protects from attacks on the devices. It's especially good for networks that you don't have physical or other access to the device, and you want to have real-time on-device protection. So all this ties in very nicely with our Infinity story. We protect the cloud, the data centers, mobile devices, endpoints, offices, and now, of course, the IoT part of the network as well. This is basically a figure to show what our solution components are. We talked about each and every one of them: discovery, profiling, firmware assessment, zero trust IoT, and the runtime protection, which is the nano agent. We also have ruggedized devices, which are aimed at, probably you know about this 1570R. That's a ruggedized device that ties into more of the OT, our OT story. But as you can see here, from this diagram, you could see a typical holistic approach. Our holistic approach to IoT. We have the ruggedized devices for the industrial side, the nano agents. We have the medical device protection, the building management system protection, which includes also the nano agent on an IP camera. And all of this ties in with our Infinity portal, our threat prevention story, and it's all very nice, and customers really like to hear about this this story. So that is our solution overview. Hope it wasn't too technical. It's in a nutshell. In terms of what we offer a complete solution which ties in very nicely with our firewall technology. I'll touch a little bit about what our channel strategy is right now. So we are talking to various channel partners. Right now, we are generating a lot of opportunities on our own through our direct sales force. Obviously, my aim is to have a very strong channel that is promoting the IoT products. It's a no-brainer for the channel because it's existing checkpoint channels will identify the need here. They're probably hearing from our customers, from their customers about the need for IoT protection. They already know and have the relationship with the install base of checkpoint at their accounts. So for them to come and talk to an account, something other than a firewall, is obviously something that is very compelling to them, because nobody wants to go and talk about firewalls anymore. People want to talk about something that's new, innovative, sexy, and IoT very much so is an offering that is all of the above. And with IoT, there's a service offering that we can offer, or there's a services opportunity for the channel to talk about selling professional services on top of that. And we're willing and ready to engage with our channel partners on delivering IoT protection for their customers into new accounts as well as existing checkpoint accounts. And from starting next year, we're going to have this as part of our emerging technology. So there will be, of course, additional margin opportunities for channel partners. And I encourage everyone to talk about IoT as our channel partners prepare for 2021, and they want to talk about what are they going to be selling in 2021. IoT needs to be a part of that discussion. They need to put it in the books now, get trained on it. We have the training, all the training materials are on the Partner Map portal. I encourage you to reach out to me or to our internal wiki page to get all the information you need on the IoT offering. I would be happy to engage with any channel partner who wants to see a presentation or discuss routes to market account planning. Obviously, account planning is the account's responsibility. I'd be more than happy to support any of these activities. And that's basically my pitch. If there are any questions, feel free. I'm willing to answer anything that you might have on the related subjects. Any questions? Just to reiterate, we have the Mitigate, Armis, Clarity, and Order on our price book. They're all available for quoting. Deal registrations are available for IoT as well as a subsection in the deal registration process. So a channel partner who wants to register a deal, he could choose IoT as one of the subsections, and that will automatically be routed, and I will see that deal registration. So it's important to know that this is also incorporated into our deal registration process. We also have deal registration as it relates to the discovery partners, Armis, Mitigate, Order, and Clarity. Once we identify an opportunity, we have to register with them so we know that we are protected, just as we offer to our channel partners. They are offering that deal registration mechanism to us. It's important that that would be a part of the sales process to when we engage with our discovery partners. And I believe that's about deal registration. That's it for that. Any questions? I don't see anything on the Q&A. For a partner who is not doing IoT projects, what would be the first step? Great question. So it doesn't necessarily have to be doing an IoT project. Customers today, all customers have IoT devices on their network. So this leads me to, what question do you ask your customer? How do you engage? So the first question you would ask a customer, Mr. Customer, how many IoT devices do you have on your network? 9 times out of 10, they would say, we have no idea. And that opens the discussion about discovery. That opens the discussion on how do you protect what you can't see. And that will very quickly lead to a demo, and then to a proof of concept, and ultimately, hopefully, to a sale. So the first step, to answer your question, the first step would be to engage with the customer, identify the low-hanging fruits. If it's healthcare, all of the hospitals will know what you're talking about. When you talk about managing medical devices, that is easy. That is an easy pitch. And the industrial space is also very easy. Enterprise may need some more education, but definitely lead off with asking what IoT device, how many IoT devices do you have, and are you aware of the risks around IoT? Probably not, but once you talk about it, you say, hey, I can show you how many IoT devices you have. An initiative that we're about to embark on beginning of October, similar to what we have around our firewall technology. We have what's called the IoT security, the security check. We're going to have an IoT security check, which will give the customer like a brief report, showing him like from a bird's eye exactly what he has on his network, and then that will definitely open his eyes and say, whoa, I didn't know that all these devices, these phones are connected to my network, these cameras. Once customer sees all of that, the discussion will be fairly easy after that. Any other questions? So like I said, feel free to reach out directly to me or to, we have an alias, an email alias. Alias is IoT_security_sales@checkpoint.com. And then I'm gonna post that on the chat. And you could simply contact us and we'll be happy to answer any questions, any queries, get on any calls you want, and present the solution. Just to give you an idea, an average IoT security deal is between $250,000 and $350,000. So these are serious big opportunities. The pipeline we have today is around 40 million. So there's big opportunity for everyone here in the channel, especially. That's it for me. Trish?
Thank you, Doron, for taking the time to present to our partner community. We appreciate it. For the partners on the line, make sure to register this webinar under your Engage app to gain points. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Or did you want to put in the alias?
Yeah,
and
it's on the chat.
Okay. You want to go ahead and jot down the alias in the chat for the IoT? And thank you again, Doron, for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much for attending.